Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today it's time for a new episode of my 5-star predictions. I know recently I did a video where I read until I got a 5-star, or maybe I didn't get a 5-star. You'll have to check out that vlog if you're interested in that long form content. This is a series that I've been doing on my channel for a long time, where I have a short-term way of doing this, where essentially I talk to you guys about 5 of my predictions from the past that I have read and tell you whether or not I was correct in my prediction of a 5-star, and then I give you a TBR of 5 books that I am predicting to be a 5-star for the future. And so some of these might be featured in another part of that 5-star vlog at some point whenever I do get a 5-star and you guys see that vlog. So some of these might be in that vlog as well, but they might not, because maybe I'll get a 5-star before I even get to any of these. The first of the 5 books that I originally predicted to be a 5-star is Fireborne. So I did read this several months ago at the very beginning of the year, if not at the end of last year. It's been a minute since I've given you guys one of these episodes. So Fireborne was pitched to me as a better version of Fourth Wing, and so that's one of the reasons I picked it up. I did really enjoy Fourth Wing, but at that point in time I think I just wanted more dragons. I don't really care in what format, and so that's the reason that this got put on my TBR in my 5-star prediction, because I had just heard amazing things about it. Unfortunately, this was not a 5-star for me. I ended up rating this a 4-star, and I do think I ended up reading this at the end of last year, because I don't think I was doing quarter stars. I think at this point it would probably be a 3.75 for me because of a couple components. First, if you've never heard of Fireborne and you like dragon books, I definitely think it is something that you should give a chance. You have 2 characters, Annie and Lee, who are from different sides of the tracks, essentially. Annie is lowborn, Lee is from the aristocracy, and they, because of circumstances surrounding the country that they're in, they both are in the same circumstance and are trying to become dragon riders for their country. And so you get to see their friendship and their relationship grow throughout the process, and that's the premise of the book. I think that my problem with this, the reason that it wasn't rated higher, and I'm not going to be continuing on with the series either, is because of the fact that it's YA. I struggle really, really bad with YA fantasy, especially because I think, 1, the dialogue tends to be not gripping to me and a little angsty at times, and then 2, I think sometimes the character development isn't as deep as I would like it to be. Now, I do think that this book does some good things with character development. I still don't think it went hard enough for me. Because I really just didn't care about, people are gonna come for me, I really didn't care about Annie. I thought Lee's storyline was really interesting, although it's not like I was really vibing with him either, I guess. I think I found his story more intriguing than her story, but I wasn't connected to the characters, and I really didn't like the romance in it either. I would have been better, I think, if they just would have ended up as friends. But yeah, I think those are my 2 main problems. It's YA, and I didn't connect with the characters. So I won't be continuing on with the series, but I think that this is just a situation where this book just wasn't written for me. I absolutely think that people who have loved this book in the past, or love this series, I think that they're correct. It's not for me. I also would say, I'll add a criticism, that I do think that I would have liked the dragons to be a little bit more of the focus in this, and that's definitely not the case. And I do think a couple of people told me that going in, because that was one of my criticisms of Fourth Wing, was that I really wanted to know more about the dragons. And they were like, oh, you have to read Fireborne then. So maybe that happens later in the books, or yeah, I didn't feel like they were any more of the focus than they were in Fourth Wing. So yeah. The next book I read for this is The Book That Wouldn't Burn, and this was absolutely a 5-star. This was a prediction that I got correct. This is my 2nd favorite book of the year last year. I also posted a video called, is this going to be my favorite book of the year? Because I read this in the middle of the year. I think I read it in May, but I'll link that in the cards and down in the description if you guys are interested in a more detailed review. If you haven't heard of this book, this follows two characters, Livira and Ivar, who live on separate... They live in completely different locations. So Livira lives out in the dust. She is completely separated from society in kind of a really downtrodden village, having to deal with monsters and really horrible things that live outside of civilization's protection. And because of the circumstances of something that happens in her village, she ends up having to travel to the city and have to deal with some prejudices against her being kind of lowborn. They don't call it that, but that's the gist. And then Ivar is raised in a library, and his family has been in the library for generations. They are essentially imprisoned in this library, and they are trying to find their way out. And so it seems at the very beginning of the book that these two characters have nothing to do with each other. They're in completely different locations and have different circumstances going on. But as the story continues, their storylines intertwine. And I love how the plot of this was woven together. The character development also is amazing. I'm currently actually reading the sequel to the book that broke the world. I just can't get enough of the world. The library is fascinating. The characters are amazing. And it's beautifully written. So well done to Mark Lawrence. I will continue reading the series. I also need to read some of Mark Lawrence's backlist because this was my first Mark Lawrence. So I know that's going back. I've had a couple of people say, like, sometimes reading an author's backlist can be disappointing because you know what they have accomplished at this point, and I think that might be the case here, but I am still going to give some of his other works a try. This one was a slam dunk for me. The next book that I tried out was Sons of Darkness, and this ended up being a DNF for me, which is sad because I really do think that this book had a lot of elements that I could have really enjoyed. If you haven't heard of Sons of Darkness, first off, the cover is stunning. It's the reason that originally got put on my TBR. And Barnes & Noble has like this beautiful edition of it too that I really wanted, but alas, it wasn't for me. It features Indian mythology, I believe. I'm not 100% confident with that, but you start out with some storylines that don't really feel like they go together. I know there was a character who's in a war that you're fighting at the very beginning, and some betrayal goes on. This is like the first chapter of the book, by the way. And then you also have a character who is becoming an oracle, and it's this really brutal process, and they actually take notes of like everything that's being prophesied and things like that, and that was really interesting. And then we follow another character after that's a king, and that was kind of where I lost interest. I think this might be a book that I pick up at some point in the game later on in my stage of reading, but right now I just don't think I had the patience for it, which is crazy because I love chunky books, but it was so all over the place and I couldn't see where things were connecting. I was really intrigued with the first two storylines I was given, and those were really detailed. And like I can't remember what percent I was in the book, but then we get to this other character and more stuff gets thrown at me, and I was just like, I want a little bit of simplicity, I guess. The next book was The Remarkable Retirement of Edna Fisher, and this was not a 5-star, but it was a 4.5. It's damn close. And oh my gosh, I just freaking love Edna Fisher. If you haven't heard of this and you like fantasy and you like cranky old ladies, you should give this a try. This follows Edna, who is retired and in a nursing home, and she lives in a magical world. So this is a world where trolls and goblins and dwarves and elves all live in society with one another. And there are dragons, as you can see on the front cover. And Edna lives in a nursing home that is magic free. So she lives in a nursing home that has humans in it that do not have any magical abilities. They're not wizards or witches or anything like that. And one day she is approached by a wizard, and she's essentially told that she is the chosen one of the kingdom and she's going to go save her city. And she's like, what? Now, she also does not say no because she wants to go on an adventure. She is tired of being in the nursing home. She does not like the mundanities of life, and I think is itching for a little adventure, and so she decides to go. And the cast of characters that gather around her throughout this are just lovely. It's funny, it's quirky. There's also a little bit of romance in this as well. It's definitely not the main portion of the book, but there is just little spikes of it every once in a while that are really cute. And yeah, I just, the book was really heartwarming, really silly, and a really good time. So if you need a pick-me-up, I think this would be the perfect book for you. The last prediction that I had for you guys was Rabbitback Literature Society, which is also a DNF. So this book, I put it on my predictions, my 5-star predictions, because it's weird. And it is weird. It succeeded in that. And I do think it's the right kind of weird. But unfortunately, there were a couple of scenes in this book that made me really uncomfortable, and I was having a hard time picking it back up. So I actually just decided to DNF this book yesterday. And I got to page 232 out of 340. So I'm about 100 pages, a little over 100 pages away from the ending, and I keep not picking it up, and I just need to DNF it. I'm done at this point. If any of you have read this and you know the answers to all the mysteries in this, please let me know, because I would love to know, because there are some really intriguing mysteries. If you haven't heard of this, you follow a character whose name is Ella, and she is a substitute teacher. She runs across an essay of a kid who wrote an essay about crime and punishment. And the essay that he wrote definitely had some scenes that were not in that book. And so she addresses it with the student, and he's like, they are, and he hands her his copy of the book, and she reads it, and the scenes are in there. And so she goes looking. She knows that they're not in the original manuscript. She looks at the publication date, blah, blah, blah. She goes to the library, tells the librarian essentially that the book has been tampered with, and the librarian's like, yeah, that happens a lot. I'll take it out of circulation. And there's like a stack of books next to her that she has that they're essentially taking out of circulation because the context of the book has changed. And Ella's like, that doesn't happen. Like, that's not a normal thing. And the librarian's like, yeah, it happens all the time. And so this society, the Rabbitback Literature Society, is in this town that Ella is living in, and they are a society of authors that were created by a children's author named Laura White, who writes books called Creaturesville, which are like gnomes and elves and things. And so the town has kind of become known for Creaturesville, and so that's one of the things they give her, like housewarming gifts. So like everyone has lawn gnomes and goblin statues and really creepy things sitting around their house. And Ella, our main character, gets invited into the society, and this is the first time this happened in 30 years, and the author, Laura White, who created the society, goes missing in a very mysterious way. And so Ella is trying to figure out what happened, and she also is just trying to unwrap the mysteries of the society. And like I said, I think that there were so many facets of this book that I really did enjoy. Some of the looks into someone's inner self I think are really interesting, but there were a couple of scenes specifically on like body image, and a scene where I think, in my opinion, a male character was taking advantage of our female main character, and it just made me really uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I think I just need to be done with the book. So, 2 DNFs on my prediction list. I did not do better than I did last time. I think last time I got 2 5 stars out of my 5 predictions. So here's to hoping that my next TBR, which I'm going to give you now, has some winners on it. Now, I will say I did something a little different in this video than I did in my last one, because I realized that most of my books, with the exception of Rabbitback Literature Society, in my last prediction list were fantasy. And so I wanted to spread the love a little bit and give you guys a whole bunch of different genres, because I do read a variety of genres, and I do give 5 stars in a variety of genres. And so I want to challenge myself with this a little bit to pick up more varied books, and hopefully these will sound interesting to you as well. So I'm just going to tell you guys the 5 books that I am predicting are going to be 5 stars, and I will eventually get back with you guys on whether or not I was correct. The first book on my TBR is Fantastic Land. This is on my 24 in 2024. I am absolutely fascinated by theme parks, especially horror books written in theme parks. I think that it's really fun, but I haven't seen it done well. And so I am hoping, I've heard a couple of people that I trust the recommendations have absolutely loved this, and I'm predicting that it's going to be great. If you haven't heard of this, this features a theme park where something happens and the theme park gets kind of shut off from society. I think maybe a hurricane happens, and there are some people who get stuck inside the theme park, and there are weird things that go on, horrible things that go on, like heads on spikes, people die, you know, gore everywhere type of things that happen. And the book unravels what exactly happened in the time span that these people were stuck in the park. I think also this might be mixed media. I can't tell based on the synopsis. It says that they actually interview people in the book, so I don't know if we see the interviews or if it's still written in just a book format, but I'll find out. So Fantastic Land was my horror pick for this. The next pick is a historical fantasy, and that is A Short Walk Through a Wide World. This book originally is going on this list because it's pitched as a book that's similar to Addie LaRue. And Addie LaRue is one of my all-time favorite books. And so, yes, please, more Addie LaRue for me. Now, if you haven't heard of this, you are following a girl who, I think this book starts with her being 9, if I remember correctly. But she has something happen to her that's like a fatal thing that potentially happens, and she runs away from it, and the act of running away actually prevents her from dying. But she finds out that if she doesn't continue to move, she will die. And so she goes through her life having to travel constantly because she's not allowed to stay in any place for too long, but she also can't travel back to places that she's been. And that's kind of all I know. It does sound very Addie LaRue-esque because Addie had to travel, or didn't have to travel, I guess, but she was constantly being forgotten, and she did travel the world. And I don't know, like the similarity between Addie not being able to be remembered and this girl not being able to go back to places that she's already been, I think is going to be fun to see. I'm not expecting the same writing. I'm trying to like lower expectations in my head, but at the same time, I do think I really like the premise of this, and I think it could go some really cool places. So I'm excited about this one. The next book is a sci-fi fantasy called Rake's Fall, and I haven't heard anyone talk about this, but it just sounds really intriguing to me, and I don't know, I just have an itch to pick it up. So I'm just going to read you a little bit of the synopsis that kind of grabbed me. It says, some stories take more than one lifetime to tell. There are wrongs that echo through the ages, friendships that outpace the claws of death, loves that leave their mark on civilization, and promises that nothing can break. This is one such story. Annelid and Leverett met as children in the middle of a war. They found each other in a torn-up nation, peering through propaganda to grasp a deeper truth. And in a demon-haunted wood, another act of violence linked them and propelled their souls on a journey throughout the ages. No world can hold them, no life can bind them, and they'll never leave each other behind. As they reincarnate ever deeper into their future, they will chase the edge of human possibility. That synopsis, for whatever reason, didn't have the part that I remember seeing, and maybe it's a blurb on the front cover, but it talks about two souls being intertwined and not being able to leave each other behind. And I'm intrigued by how they're going to do this in a sci-fi novel. So I also love the cover. So I guess we'll find out. The fourth prediction for me is a novel love story. I know, who am I? A romance book? Are you kidding? So I am putting this on this list primarily because of the author. I have had a 5-star romance from Ashley Poston before, but I also think that this synopsis sounds really cute. You have a woman who does not really have a relationship currently. She kind of is avoiding because she's had some trauma in the past. And so she lives her romantic fantasies through reading. And she, one day, for whatever reason, ends up in a town of one of the romance novels that she has read, but that was never finished because I think the author of that book ended up passing away. And so she runs into this town, it's frozen in time, and she thinks that she has to help create this happy ending to release this town from being frozen. So, and there's a character in this as well who lives in the town, who she doesn't recognize from the original text. And I think that's going to end up being the love interest. And I think maybe it's a little bit Grumpy Sunshine because it sounds like he doesn't want her to make the town have a happy ending. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but it's kind of a book within a book. I don't know. I'm excited about it though. And I know that in the last book that I read by Ashley Poston that I really enjoyed was Dead Romantics, had some grief and trauma mixed in as well. And I think that kind of, for me, I think that adds a different layer, a different texture to romance books that I really enjoy, because a lot of times if it's just romance and it's light and fluffy, I seem to get a little irritated. And so I think having a little bit of trauma and growth throughout, you know, not using the trauma, but like having trauma to discuss and having someone grow from that and, you know, maybe come back into loving themselves throughout a book is something I really enjoy. And so, yeah, I'm hopeful for this one. The last 5-star prediction for me is The Last Murder at the End of the World. This is by Scott Turton. Whatever, I'll put a picture of it off to the side. This is the same author that wrote the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I did enjoy. I did not give that one but 5 stars, but I do enjoy the premise that the premises this author tends to create and the detail and complexity of some of the mysteries that he has made. And so I have high hopes for this one. The premise of this is absolutely fantastic. You have an island that is the only place where human civilization exists because the rest of the world has been killed off by this fog. The fog is held at bay by some type of security system on this island. One of the scientists on the island is killed, and that upsets the security system in some way, and so the fog is trying to get in, and the murder has to be solved, otherwise the fog is going to come in and kill them all. I don't know why. I think it sounds fantastic. I'm intrigued, and yeah. So this is a 5-star prediction of mine as well, and this is a mystery. So I have given you guys a historical fantasy, a sci-fi fantasy, a mystery, a horror, a romance. Who am I? I hope all of these are 5 stars. I will let you guys know as soon as I get to them. Like I said, these might be in that 5-star vlog, part 2 of the 5-star vlog if I get to them before I get a 5-star, but if not, I will definitely have another episode of my 5-star predictions to let you guys know how I did with these predictions. In the meantime, let me know if you guys have any 5-star predictions of your own recently. Are there any books that you are super excited to pick up that you just know are going to be your jam? If so, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to chat with you guys about the books that you are excited to read in the upcoming days. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.